that rivaled the way some people casually draft emails. Yet for
Miss Belle Starr, the greatest horse thief in history. The legend of Belle Starr is one steeped in the murk of both history and myth. A tale woven with violence, rebellion, and audacious escapades that defied the norms of her era. Born Myra Maybelle Shirley on February 5, 1848, in the tumultuous border town of Carthage, Missouri. Her story begins against the backdrop of pre-Civil War America, a time when loyalties were torn asunder by whispers of impending conflict. Her father, John Shirley, was a wealthy innkeeper and farmer whose Southern sympathies ran deep, influencing Belle's early understanding of loyalty and lawlessness. Her mother, Elizabeth Hatfield Shirley, was known for her stern discipline, instilling in Belle an uncompromising will that would later become her hallmark. Belle had several siblings, including her older brother, John Allison Shirley, whose misadventures in violence foreshadowed the path she would ultimately tread. Belle's early life was marked by privilege uncommon for most girls of her time. The Shirley family lived in a large home, hosting influential guests and soldiers, exposing Belle to tales of war and rebellion. She attended the Carthage Female Academy, where she received an education that included classical literature and music, skills that she wielded as deftly as her pistol in later years. By her teenage years, Belle was proficient in piano and had a sharp intellect that made her both admired and feared by those who encountered her. But the security of her youth shattered when Union forces burned Carthage in 1864, displacing the Shirleys and seeding in Belle a lasting enmity against authority. As the Civil War raged on, Belle gravitated toward those who opposed the Union, notably aligning with Confederate sympathizers and guerrilla fighters. It was during this period that she met Cole Younger, a member of the infamous Younger Gang and a man whose reputation for theft and violence was well established. Though historical accounts differ, many suggest that Belle's relationship with Cole went beyond mere friendship, hinting at romantic involvement that foreshadowed her later entanglements. The war also introduced Belle to Frank and Jesse James, notorious outlaws who would become legendary figures in their own right. These early associations were formative, immersing her in a world where danger was currency and loyalty could be bought or betrayed with a single glance. In 1866, Belle married James C. Reed, a former Confederate soldier turned cattle thief and outlaw. Reed was a man who matched Belle in both charm and lawlessness. The two shared an affinity for risk, living a life that straddled the line between domesticity and criminal enterprise. Their union produced two children, Rosie Lee, nicknamed Pearl, and James Edwin, who would grow up in the shadow of their mother's notoriety. Though Belle took on the appearance of a devoted mother, it was a role she played alongside that of a sharpshooter, scout, and accomplice in Reed's ventures. Together, they orchestrated robberies that spanned Texas and the Indian Territory, using disguises and Belle's cunning to evade capture. Belle's participation was not that of a passive wife. She was known to carry twin Colt .45 revolvers, riding her horse, Venus, with a posture that exuded command and defiance. James Reed's death in 1874, the result of a gunfight, did not leave Belle bereft or deterred from her outlaw ways. On the contrary, it spurred her further into the life of crime. By this time, Belle had become infamous, known not only for her exploits but for her audacity. Tales spread of her ability to charm lawmen with her wit, even as she planned their downfall. Her fame was bolstered by the burgeoning press, who painted her as a bandit queen, an image Belle both detested and used to her advantage. In 1880, Belle married Sam Starr, a member of the Cherokee Nation who was as charismatic as he was dangerous. Their relationship was a partnership forged in mutual respect and shared criminality. They settled on a property in the Indian Territory, now Oklahoma, where they built a homestead that served as a hideout for wanted men and a base for their operations. It was a place where Belle hosted gatherings that were part raucous celebration, part clandestine council. Guests included outlaws of various renown, creating a network that stretched across state lines. It was during this phase that Belle refined her approach to crime. Her heists became more calculated, relying on misdirection and alliances. Witnesses would recall her riding astride, her black hair flowing, eyes narrowed with the intensity of one who sees everything as a challenge. Belle's life was not without brushes with the law. In 1883, she and Sam were arrested by U.S. Marshals and tried in Fort Smith, Arkansas, before the formidable Judge Isaac Parker, known as the hanging judge. In a courtroom that reeked of sweat and anticipation, Belle conducted herself with poise, delivering a defense laced with intelligence and sarcasm. Despite the odds, she was acquitted, reinforcing her status as a near-mythical figure whose luck seemed impervious. However, Sam was not as fortunate and spent time in prison, leaving Belle to navigate the outlaw life on her own. Belle's reputation was complicated. To some, she was a symbol of rebellion, a woman who defied the rigid expectations of her gender and thrived in a male-dominated underworld. To others, she was a manipulative figure who used her femininity and intelligence for selfish gain. Accounts from those who knew her suggest she could be ruthless, showing little mercy to those who betrayed her. Yet, she also inspired loyalty among her followers and was known to shelter fugitives at great personal risk. This duality extended to her personal relationships. Belle had numerous rumored affairs, some with men in her circle of outlaws. Though these stories remain speculative and colored by the biases of the era, Belle's physical presence was as striking as her reputation. She stood taller than most women, with a lean, muscular build developed from years on horseback. Her eyes were dark and piercing, set in a face that could shift from softness to severity in an instant. She dressed with a flair that combined practicality with intimidation. Leather riding boots, wide-brimmed hats, and garments adorned with studs and tassels. It was said that she would wear a crimson scarf around her neck, a symbol that many believed signified her willingness to spill blood if necessary. Her life, marked by rebellion, was also punctuated by moments of vulnerability. She was known to have a temper, erupting into fits of anger when betrayed or cornered. Servants and farmhands at her homestead recounted her demands and occasional cruelty, though others spoke of a softer side, glimpsed only when she thought herself unobserved. Belle's devotion to her children was complex. While she provided for them materially, they were not shielded from the tumult of her existence. Eddie and Rosie would grow up with the weight of their mother's name and choices, struggling to carve out their paths amidst the legacy of crime. On February 3, 1889, just 2 days shy of her 41st birthday, Belle's life came to a sudden, violent end. Riding back to her ranch after a trip to Fort Smith, she was ambushed and shot from behind. The identity of her killer remains a matter of speculation. Some whispered that a former lover, betrayed by her refusal, had taken his revenge. Others claimed it was a rival outlaw seeking to claim her territory. Still others posited that it was a personal betrayal, orchestrated by someone within her trusted circle. Belle fell from her horse, the cold ground catching her lifeless body. She died alone, without the bravado or spectacle that had defined her life. Belle Starr was buried on her property, near the cabin that had witnessed both her triumphs and her defeats. A simple stone marker bore her name, inscribed with the words, "Shed not for her the bitter tear, nor give the heart to vain regret. 'Tis but the casket that lies here, the gem that filled it sparkles yet, the wealth she had accumulated, in both currency and legend, dissipated after her death. Her children, Eddie and Rosie, faced lives marred by their mother's reputation. Eddie, troubled by his own run-ins with the law, and Rosie, seeking stability in a life haunted by memories of pistol shots and midnight rides. The legacy of Belle Starr is not one of clear heroes and villains. She was a woman who, by choice and circumstance, navigated a path filled with contradictions. A mother, an outlaw, a seductress, and a strategist, her life embodied the precarious balance between survival and notoriety, leaving behind a story that, whether romanticized or vilified, cannot be dismissed. Belle Starr's story, often veiled in legend, includes aspects that remain largely overlooked. While direct evidence of her personal involvement in murders and bank robberies is murky, historical accounts suggest she may have facilitated or planned crimes rather than committing them herself. Known for her cunning, she masterminded numerous robberies alongside the likes of Sam Starr and other outlaws. But specific tallies of bank heists or murders attributed solely to her remain elusive. She was involved in horse thefts, a more common crime of the era, which she treated with the same meticulous strategy as larger heists. The numbers of crimes she planned versus those she executed blur within the mythos surrounding her. One rare fact about Belle Starr is her fluency in multiple languages, particularly English and rudimentary Cherokee, which aided her alliances within the Indian Territory. She was known to conceal letters in complex ciphering, confounding lawmen who tried to track her. Belle also reportedly kept a journal, which hinted at an introspective side overshadowed by her criminal persona. She had an uncanny ability to mimic voices, which she used to mislead those who sought her arrest. Her organizational skills made her one of the earliest known female figures to run an outlaw network, choreographing criminal operations with precision. She even manipulated legal loopholes to avoid lengthy incarcerations, outsmarting even the shrewdest lawmen of her day. Belle Starr's journey into the criminal underworld began in her early 20s, influenced by the tumultuous environment of post-Civil War America. This era saw many displaced and desperate individuals turning to lawlessness, and Starr's association with notable criminals like the James Younger Gang undoubtedly contributed to her early exposure to crime. Her first recorded criminal activities involved horse theft, a high-value crime at the time. By the mid-1870s, Starr had become more active in facilitating and coordinating robberies. The exact number of registered crimes against Belle Starr is hard to pinpoint due to inconsistent records and the oral traditions that shaped her legend. However, documented cases primarily include charges related to horse theft and complicity in robberies. Historians have confirmed at least one conviction for horse theft, leading to her imprisonment in 1883. Alleged crimes such as bank robberies, murders, and other high-profile thefts were never formally registered against her due to insufficient evidence or the skill with which she covered her tracks, leaving many charges as mere allegations. Belle Starr's grave is located near Eufaula, Oklahoma, at Younger's Bend, the property where she spent much of her final years. The headstone is inscribed with the words, "Shed not for her the bitter tear, nor give the heart to vain regret. 'Tis but the casket that lies here, the gem that filled it sparkles yet." Today, visitors to her grave can reflect on the enduring mystery of her life and death, marked by the contradictions of crime and legend intertwined. Two of the most notorious episodes linked to Belle Starr's life involve her role in organized horse theft and her association with the infamous Starr clan, which became known for their operations within the Indian Territory. First, Belle was widely associated with a high-profile horse theft ring, an incredibly lucrative crime in the late 19th century. She was known for orchestrating thefts with precision, often moving stolen horses across state lines to avoid detection. In 1883, she was arrested and convicted of horse theft alongside her second husband, Sam Starr, marking her most definitive brush with the law. This conviction was significant, as it showcased her active participation and brought her criminal operations under federal scrutiny, culminating in a 9-month sentence. The second major aspect of her life was her relationship with the Starr clan, particularly her marriage to Sam Starr, a Cherokee outlaw. This marriage positioned Belle as an unofficial queen among the outlaws of the Indian Territory, where she became a notorious figure in both legend and reality. Known as Queen of the Outlaws, her association with the Starr clan enhanced her fame and facilitated her involvement in planning and hiding various criminal activities, from robberies to assisting other outlaws evading the law. These connections solidified her as a key player in a network that blurred the lines between community ties and organized crime, cementing her as a legendary figure in the annals of Wild West history. In a nutshell, Belle Starr was more famously known for her involvement in horse theft rather than bank robberies, while there are various legends and rumors surrounding her life, including speculation about her participation in bank robberies and other violent crimes. The most documented and widely recognized aspect of her criminal career was her role in horse theft. She was part of a significant criminal network in the Indian Territory, where horse stealing was not only common but also highly profitable. While she did associate with notorious outlaws, including the James Younger Gang, and was known for facilitating various robberies, horse theft remains the central crime she is remembered for in historical accounts. The lack of concrete evidence for bank robberies or other major heists means that horse theft is considered her most defining and infamous criminal activity. Belle Starr's time spent behind bars was relatively short. She was arrested and convicted for horse theft in 1883. After her conviction, she served 9 months in Detroit, Michigan, where she was imprisoned. This was the most significant incarceration in her criminal career, although she faced arrest on multiple occasions throughout her life. She was never imprisoned for a long period again after that. Her time in jail was relatively brief compared to many other criminals of her time. The rest of her life involved evading capture, living in the shadows of the law, and continuing her outlaw activities until her death in 1889.